This week's episode of Shoot the Ones podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Local Liquids, the premier vape shop located at 400 West Rosemary Street in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Listen, put down a pack of cigarettes and check out www.local-liquids.com for their wide variety of e-liquids, devices, and coil selections. Tell them Dema sent you for an additional 10% off your purchase. Local Liquids, your premier North Carolina vape shop. And now to the show.
Welcome to Shoot the Ones, an MMA podcast. I'm Genya, and we are your favorite Ukrainian hosts, bringing you an exciting episode 15.
And I am Dema. In this episode, we will go into UFC 211, Miocic versus Dos Santos. We're going to discuss recent developments in the middleweight division, also the UFC summer kickoff, and Bellator 179, Daley versus MacDonald.
Listen to Shoot the Ones on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and MMApodcast.com.
That's a call to action if I ever heard one, Genya. Alright guys, we're going to get right into UFC 211 without any further ado. What a card it was.
Yeah, Dima, these are the kind of cards that I'm most excited to do a podcast about because, we got talking points everywhere. It was just a fun card, and it lived up to the hype top to bottom.
Yeah, it lived up to every single bit of the hype as it did on paper. The card itself, from top to bottom, was hell of exciting. You know, the prelims, which, yeah, let's go bottom to top and get right into it with the prelims on the Fight Pass portion.
I agree. We started off with Gadzhimurad Antagulov. It's funny, man. I struggle with all the names, but I get that one right of all of them. Versus Joachim Christensen. And Dima, he just outclassed him here.
Yeah, man. He pushed the pace and got a textbook rear naked choke. What can you say about the fight? I kind of missed it except for the finish. I tuned right in as he was setting up the rear naked choke.
Well, what I can tell you is Antagulov, if you look at his background, he's very accomplished guy. He's a master of sambo, master of this, master of that. You know, he's got a lot of accolades to his name. He was the champion at Berkut, ACB Berkut or whatever. Yep. And he came over to UFC, and so far now this is going to take him to 2-0. And he pretty much, in his two fights in the UFC, he's got the fight to where he wants it to be real good. And he's a very unique grappler at light heavyweight. He's you know how Misha Serkinov's a real good grappler compared to that division. And Tagulov has the same kind of skills that he can lean on. And this was no different, man. He got the fight on the ground real quick with a good shot, and he was able to transition to the back just like in his first fight versus Lima and get a choke there pretty quick.
Yeah, man. He completely imposed his will and, got the finish in the very first round of the fight. So he's a good prospect coming up in the light heavyweight division, and I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again.
Excellent. The next fight we had Enrique Barzola versus Gabriel Mowgli Benitez.
That was an exciting back and forth bout.
Yeah, I liked it. We both predicted this one right. We had Barzola winning. He came through as a plus 185 underdog for me, which I was real excited about. And the difference in this fight, they were both very skilled martial artists. I think Benitez has a little bit better leg kicks. Enrique's main skill and what really proved to be the difference in this fight is he's got a really unique gas tank, and he's going to go just as hard, if not harder, the third round as he is in the first round, and he's not slowing down in there, and he was able to get Benitez a little bit tired and use his better wrestling in this fight to get the win.
Yeah, and it was
unanimous decision.
It was a fireworks fight, despite the decision outcome. They knocked each other down several times throughout the fight, and that was a good one for the prelim card.
Yeah, very back and forth. Both guys had their moments. And this leads us into the next fight where both girls did not have their moments. This was kind of a butt-kicking for Jessica Aguilar, who I thought was gonna win last week.
Yeah, and this women's strawweight display, Courtney Casey is a prospect, kind of a fresh blood, up and comer, and Jessica Aguilar is coming off of like a 2 year layoff, but a seasoned veteran nonetheless. Yeah, she did not look particularly great in this fight. She came out really, really strong initially and took Courtney Casey down and landed like some real clean ground and pound. But
Wasn't exactly a takedown. She kicked her in the leg and was able to get on top because Casey fell. She didn't land like a double leg or anything of that nature.
I just remember her, getting top
She
position
did have
off
some
real
top
quick,
position.
off the bat, and then she landed ground and pound. And perhaps she might have gassed a little bit after that, but after that, Courtney Casey just whooped her butt like from her back
Yeah,
with her like up kicks and stuff.
excellent point. And the announcers were talking about that a lot. Casey was pretty much winning the fight anywhere that it went. Like on the feet, she was using her distance very well. She would be in that range where she could land punches and kicks, while Aguilar wasn't landing anything. And and then she, like you said, with the kicks, with the up kicks, she utilized up kicks almost as good as any man or woman that I've seen in an MMA fight. I think she stunned Aguilar like 2 or 3 times with up kicks. She took out her knees. I mean, she was doing some pretty brutal stuff off her back, and just Aguilar was a little bit too hard headed and stubborn, to avoid that strategy.
Yeah, this is true. And if she was successful in any facet of the fight, is she was able to take Courtney Casey down, which she wasn't able to capitalize on or do anything with, because, like you said, Courtney Casey was very effective from her back and her jiu-jitsu and her striking.
Dima, if you were Aguilar, how do you better avoid up kicks like that? Because she obviously was not utilizing the right strategy. I'm thinking she could have done more like what King Mo does and like swing the legs. Is that kind of the right thing you're looking for to
Well,
get in
you
a side mount when you're the shorter fighter like Aguilar?
you don't want to hang out there in somebody who's well versed in jiu-jitsu. You don't want to hang out in the guard. You want to look to pass. And man, she could have also stood up, and she could have waved her up and let the referee stand him up.
Yeah, but the problem with that fight was Aguilar was losing bad on her feet. So she wanted to be there on the ground is what I'm saying. I think for her, like the thing about it is her jiu-jitsu is probably slightly better than Casey's. Due to Casey's wicked up kicks and the amount of power, she was able to keep Aguilar off her while hurting her. Trying all she wanted to do was really get in there and implement some of her top game, and she wasn't able to.
I don't think she, did anything wrong per se. Courtney Casey was a tricky opponent for her in that regard, and she's also coming in after a 2 year layoff. So,
Yeah.
she just needs to get back in there and continue doing what she does, and she'll still be,
I hear you. My
competitive.
my analysis on Casey though is she's getting better at a rapid rate, and she just came off of a very good fight with Claudia Gadelha, who we both agree is the second best in the division. And she looked pretty good against Claudia.
Yeah, man, she's looking solid, and I want to see where she goes from here. Speaking of looking solid, in the preliminary card on the FX portion of things, the lightweight bout between James Vick and Marco Polo Reyes did not exactly go in Marco Polo Reyes' way. It was a TKO finish in the first round.
Yeah, as many people predicted, James Vick did get the win. We predicted that also last week at
Yes,
Shoot
sir.
the Ones. Um, I didn't think it would be this easy, man. Marco Polo Reyes does have a background in boxing, and James Vick seemed to have a very big advantage there on the feet.
Yeah, I mean he was a sniper with the stand up. He landed a really really slick combination. He landed for the finish. He landed a fadeaway jab, and then he threw in a right that came right afterwards. Missed that, kind of fell back a little bit and landed a straight right, which was super clean for the win, which was, just a super impressive display of striking. Very awesome performance for Vic here. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it takes him to 7-1 in the UFC, I believe. What do you think is coming up next for him?
Beast mode. He called out winner of Chiesa and Lee. He got some, good mic time in there. He talked some good shit, and he looked really, really good in the fight. So, yeah, that's a good fight for him. So let's see what happens between Lee and Chiesa.
I think that's fair. I think he should get a top level guy, especially he's put in his dues, and he looks like he's got the skills to compete with those guys. I mean, maybe not win necessarily, but he definitely has what it takes to go in there and cause problems for either one of those fighters. To be honest with you.
Yeah, man. I mean, he looked good in a lot of facets of the fight game. So I'm excited to see where he goes from here.
Next up, we had Chase Sherman versus hometown Rashad Coulter.
The battle of nicknames: the Vanilla Gorilla versus the Daywalker. Was it?
I'm not sure Rashad's. The Daywalker Coulter. And before this fight, Dema, I studied up a little tape on Rashad Coulter, and it was hard to find tape on him because he's fought a bunch of cab drivers and no names. But
that's how it be sometimes. I think he's a 2-week replacement, and it's tough to find an opponent.
And you could see Chase Sherman was the biggest, baddest guy he's ever fought. You know what I mean? He landed a couple shots in there that he was like, "What the hell? That didn't knock him out." Because in the small circuit, that knocks anybody out. He's got like 7 knockouts in a row, and he does have a good right hand. I told you that before the fight, but I told you also I'm expecting Chase Sherman to win. Chase Sherman was able to use his height and athleticism, which is impressive for a big guy, but he's still taking too many punches for my liking. He won the fight though, and that elbow was epic at the end that he got him with, and that fight got. Did I already say it got fight of the night?
Yeah, man, this was a fight of the night. Dana White came out and announced this at the post presser, and what a fight this was. Sherman came out and threw everything in the kitchen sink at him at the first round. Won that decisively, but couldn't put Coulter away. Second round, Coulter had somewhat of a little resurgence where he came back and landed a few shots of his own. Enough to rock Sherman a little bit and stumble him back. But ultimately, Sherman continued pressing forward and landing, crazy shots, including
a lot of knees,
and including that elbow, which, he had him against the fence, and he landed that, home run of elbow, which was, just slumped Coulter. And yeah, that was a naughty fight.
There was a little bit bigger size difference than I anticipated. It says here Chase Sherman was 6'4".
But Sherman was like real tall, and Coulter was real short and like stocky.
Coulter's like your height, 5'11".
Yeah, he was stocky as hell though.
And that did make Sherman look like a giant in there, kind of.
Yeah.
He looked real big compared to Coulter. And he was landing some devastating strikes, but he's now 1-2 in the UFC, and in his 2 losses, his head is too exposed, and he's too willing to trust his chin, it seems. But he's an exciting fighter to watch. It's fun to watch a guy go in there with the killer be killed strategy. I mean, it's not career lengthening strategy, it's definitely career shortening. But
speaking of exciting fighters with kill or be killed strategy, dude, what do you think about this next fight between Jason Knight and Chess Skelly?
Yeah, we were talking about that this is going to be an epic fight, and there's really no way we could put the curse on it. And we were right. I mean, these 2 guys came to scrap down, and Jason Knight surely looked good in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it was back and forth, and it was competitive up until the very last minute.
I think Jason Knight was winning most of the exchanges, Dema. However, Skelly, in his wild brawling style,
yeah, he was able to land some shit on him.
Would sometimes connect, kind of like in the main event, where you just kind of go Vanderlei Silva for a while and hope something lands. That's kind of the approach Skelly was using in striking. The ending there, the TKO punches, that was a little bit brutal and maybe should have been stopped a couple seconds ahead of time. It's the same ref that did the Jotko Branch one, and we'll talk a little bit more about his mistakes later.
Mm.
But he kind of let that fight go on for maybe 5-10 seconds too long. When he had Kelly down and he was already flat like a board.
Yeah, and he landed a couple of extra punches
Yeah,
there.
that was probably unnecessary. But overall, great performance from Jason Knight. Skelly made a good account of himself, but this is, I believe, his first knockout loss in the UFC, which is going to be hard to rebound from.
And it goes to show, how good Jason Knight is.
I agree, man. After that loss to Kawajiri, he's been on the come up. He's been undefeated since. And I think the biggest difference with Kawajiri was just an experience factor. If they were to fight today, I have a strong feeling Jason Knight would beat him and beat him handily, in fact.
Yeah, he's improved a lot since then. So I agree wholeheartedly. Anything else to add about this fight, or are you ready to move into the next?
No, it was just a fun fight to watch. I also could have been.
I agree with you. Be a barn burner. It was either that one or the heavyweights. I thought
Poirier Alvarez was on its way.
Yeah, that was pretty. I don't know. The first round of that, Dustin, was pretty decisively won in my eyes, and had Eddie hurt all kinds of ways. Second one was a little bit more competitive, but unfortunately, there was the controversial ending to that.
I agree. First round, Dustin Poirier came out and really used his speed advantage wisely.
He looked really good.
And his striking, he's looked like he has in the last couple fights, besides that quick knockout to Michael Johnson, which happens in MMA. Sometimes you get knocked out at the beginning. I mean, even look back, Aldo, the way he got knocked out against Conor McGregor, he's a much better fighter than that. And hey,
Michael Johnson's, top 10 guy in the division, and, has that explosive knockout power and ability. So.
Yeah, with that punch that he hit Poirier out, he would have knocked out 95% of that division.
Yep.
But this fight was, like you said, it was turning into a barn burner. And Eddie Alvarez is known for being able to take damage and just get into these wild fights over his career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this was. It turned into a wild fight. And in one of those wild exchanges, Eddie did connect. And Eddie was he was really hurt in that second round. Like, he had him on Queer Street.
Yeah, his eye was really messed up, too.
And while he was on, like, autopilot, he caught Dustin really hard. And, he was able to get some momentum. And then he got him up against the fence, and he hit him with 2 illegal knees, which the referee deemed only the last one illegal, which now that we've had a chance to view the instant replay and look at the tape, we know
2 of them were.
We know for a fact that they were 2 illegal knees that he landed.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think that call from Herb Dean came. He gave him benefit of the doubt. He said they were unintentional, which caused the no contest outcome instead of the disqualification. Which, hey, I'm not mad at that. He's a veteran and gave him benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
There. And even Poirier came out and said, "Hey, don't boo the man. He didn't mean to do that." Showing some face.
I'm a fan of both guys. I had picked Poirier to win this one, but I'm a lifelong fan of Eddie Alvarez as well. Personally, where I want to go from here is I want to see them do a rematch.
Yeah, it would be logical. Run it back. Yeah, for sure. I had Eddie here. I'm not, mad about the outcome. Neither are you. I think we all got our money back. Yeah, it does suck that it's controversial. Hopefully they'll let him run it back, like we said.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, that fight was a real barn burner. Who knows? I mean, Eddie doesn't really fade in fights, so he would have been right there for the third round.
Yeah, it started getting really scrappy there in the before the knees, and I believe he had him hurt too before he got him with a couple of those knees against the fence, because why would Dustin be in that position there against the fence if he wasn't kind of already struggling?
Yeah, what strikes me as odd is, like, Eddie Alvarez is not a dirty fighter.
No.
As long as I've watched, I mean, he's been around for some 40 fights, 30, 40 fights, never seen him do any kind of dirty tactics. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt and, like, believe that he thought those were legal. Like, he might have thought Dustin was trying to play a game, something, but I don't think he was doing it intentionally, like, oh, I'm going to get an advantage here with a legal knee.
Which brings me to a point of, it's very difficult for these fighters to keep up with the which rule set is in effect. The unified rule set, so to speak, is not really unified at this point, where you have several of the commissions on the old rule set and several of them that are on board with the new changes.
That's true, and they try to tackle that by, having a conference with these guys prior. But I can't tell you what it would be like. We'd have to ask a fighter in specific what it's like, going from one rule set to another town with another rule set. You never know, how it's going to be. Or, like, what I'm trying to say, I guess, Dema, is when you're in the midst of a fight, you're not like, oh, I'm in Dallas, Texas right now. I could do this.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's a step in the right direction, but they need to get the ball rolling and get everybody on the same page.
Well said. Anything to add on this fight?
No, it was looking really good there in second. Dustin looked really really good. I wanted to add he used his range really good. I think Eddie should have mixed in a little bit more wrestling, which he didn't do, and that's why Dustin was able to look the way he did initially.
I agree. Poirier is a improved fighter than what we saw even 1-2 years back.
Yeah, man, he looks different every fight we see him in.
Yeah, definitely not the same guy that we saw against Conor McGregor. I'm not saying that he would beat Conor right now, but just saying it would be a different fight today.
Yeah, definitely more competitive. He's learned a lot. A lot of people are struggle coming off of losses. A lot of people are really take something from it and rise to the occasion and are able to learn something from it and do their thing. So moving into the main card, we had unfortunate cancellation of Sergio Pettis and Henry Cejudo. So for the first fight of the main card, we had David Branch versus Krzysztof Jotko, which was a split decision victory for David Branch.
Yeah, it was. Do they usually? I got a question for you before we start the main event.
What's up?
Do they usually, like, have the same judges throughout on some cards? Because it seemed like Sal D'Amato was judging just about every fight.
I think they point a handful out, and you just maybe it's based on experience, but I wouldn't be the guy to ask. I don't know how this thing works.
Because this fight wasn't a split decision by any means. I mean, if we watched the fight, anybody who watched the fight with any kind of, brain is like, okay, David Branch won 2 rounds easy, maybe even 3. But Sal D'Amato, no way, not the Sal. If you want a fucked up decision, better call Sal.
Yeah, I mean, look, it wouldn't be right for me to say, hey, he was really wrong, because I didn't. I'm going to be honest, I didn't pay really good attention during this fight. From the corner of my eye, I think Branch was winning the whole fight. So yeah, this split decision is a little bit baffling, but I'll have to go back and watch. Yeah, it sounds like it should have been more decisive.
Yeah, I mean, this fight, I don't want to, toot our own horn too much, but you got 100% on this card, and I only missed 3.
Oh, I've yet to brag. I definitely going to get my brag on before we finish the 211, but yeah, man, I got every single prediction right. I got the 3-fight parlay with the last 3. Yeah, I feel pretty good about myself. I gave out some good advice on Reddit. Hopefully people followed that.
Yeah, man, that's something to feel good about, man. I've been killing it. I can't remember when I had like we are tooting our own horn a lot, but I can't remember the last time I had like a card where I did poor on. It's been quite a while. But along with this fight, it went exactly how we predicted, man. David Branch had to make it kind of a boring affair where he did a lot of grinding on the fence. He did a lot of taking down. He did a lot of like top position time, and he's Caesar Gracie black belt, one of the only Caesar Gracie black belts, and he's gotten his skills up a lot in the World Series of Fighting. And Jocko is a legit top 10 guy too, man, and he was able to have a lot more good moments than Jocko and really turn it into his type of fight.
Yeah, he really outshined. He made it a dirty fight.
But something I found interesting is it was the same ref that let Knight and Skelly go on too long.
Hmm.
He was refing this one, and Jotko, like when Dave Branch would get him in the Randy Couture against defense to work, he would do like, what is this? And like one time he did it like as soon as he got him up against the fence, he looked at the ref and he's like, what? And the ref was like, break. And Cormier started clowning him. He's like, "Oh man, I hope I get that ref. He's easily influenced."
Hey man, if you're able to play the referee a little bit for your advantage, it's all in the game.
It surely worked on a number of occasions, and I think the ref got kind of tired of all the wall activity that was going on in that fight. So it was one of the more boring affairs of the night, but a good win for Dave Branch nevertheless, and a legit contender in that light heavyweight division. Somebody that can go against the likes of Musasi and Bisping and Romero and all those guys at the top there.
Yes, sir. Look really good. Um, Speaking of looking real good, Frankie Edgar looked fantastic against Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I missed, Dima. I was really impressed with that Yair after BJ. Um, it sounded like I said after a BJ. After he beat. uh, yes, but after he beat BJ Penn, but I didn't really think about the decline that BJ Penn's had over the years. It's pretty sharp, and he's never been on Frankie's level, and this fight just kind of proved it more. And Frankie pretty much made Yair his I don't want to say that on a podcast. I guess it's fair.
He came and imposed his game.
He completely imposed his game to the point where he got 2 10-8 rounds.
Yeah. He was able to close the distance real slick. Like, movement was top notch, just as we would expect of Frankie. And Frankie came out and showed everyone that he meant business. He wanted to shut all the doubters up essentially and say, "Yeah, I'm still around, guys." And he looked really good against Yair Rodriguez. He took him down, ground and pound, lots of time, several times.
Yeah, this was a classic Frankie Edgar performance. I mean, he looked just like he's still in his prime, back when he was the 155-pound champ. And like he said after the fight, there's levels to this. And he just showed he was a completely different level to Yair Rodriguez. And it's going to take, Yair might even get to the top one day, but he's not even anywhere close to Frankie Edgar's level right now. And that's basically what this fight showed. And it kind of highlighted, Dima, how impressive Aldo's victory was over him pretty recently.
Yeah, all good points. And Frankie's no I want to say Yair. Yair is no slouch. He threw up the knee bar, and he did have a couple of moments in there, but ultimately, Frankie just did not let him get away with anything. He showed he was a veteran.
Yeah, closed his eye completely, to the point where the doctor and any reasonable person would have been like, "No way, man, it's not worth it." His eye was all the way shut. They didn't apply any kind of, what do they call that stuff that they put on your eyeball when it's swelled
Like
up?
like a cold I forgot what it's called, but it's like a
Yeah,
steel.
they use on the boxers. Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't apply it at all in between first and second round. And to be honest, I'm not sure it would have helped. The way that Frankie was landing the elbows and landing every strike to that eye, it was closing up at a rapid pace. And by the second round, it looked like a monstrosity. It was all the way shut. And despite the little success Yair had, wouldn't you score the 2 rounds 10-8 if they did go to a scorecard?
Oh, they were decisive, and I mean, it wouldn't have gotten to a scorecard. I think he was getting them out in the third.
Yeah, I agree. It was probably gonna be another takedown and some more lethal elbows.
Because look, Yair's an animal in his own right, but there's not much you can do when you can't see out of one eye. Your depth perception is all messed up. You can't properly gauge the punches that are coming at you. And this guy, Frankie, is just, is relentless with the takedown. On top of being able to move the distance, close the distance, so nice.
Exactly, and styles make fights, and Yair's known for what? His kicking game, right? So that's great and all, but not when a guy's looking to take you down off your kick. You know what I mean? And that's what Frankie's excellent at. He looks at any kind of like technique you had. It ended up being a terrible style matchup for Yair is what it was.
Not to mention, he's young. He's still learning a lot.
26.
Yeah. And Frankie's the number two in the contender in the division. So
24.
Yeah, man. A little bit too soon, but Frankie is look really good. Yair is going to be a contender in the future. I can see that. But like I said already, a little bit too soon.
I agree. Let's see what he does in the future, and I don't think it puts him down too far because not a lot of guys get by Frankie, but it did highlight the difference between him and the upper echelon of that division.
For sure, man. Do you want to talk about the next one? Want to lead him in with that?
Yeah, man, this turned out to be a really great fight. If you're a fan of either guy, because they both had moments. This fight that I'm speaking about is the split decision victory Dema and Genya had over Jorge Masvidal, which kind of played out a lot like we expected and most people predicted. Masvidal had the striking advantage, while Genya was a straight up backpack. He grabbed your back, he grabbed your leg, pulled guard, and he
took you down. He tried everything in the book to take him down.
Yeah, I was going to say, he would have the advantage anytime it was in the grappling realm. We knew that going in.
Yeah, for sure. And the fight was so close. It was almost as if they would have half a round apiece for each round of the three.
Yeah, I agree. It would start off, well, the first round was different. The first round, Dema and Genya, he got the back position stupid quick. And, when you see Genya in that position, you're like, oh, shit, it's over here in a second. But Masvidal was able to defend very intelligently. And at the end of the first round, he shucked him off. And he really hurt Genya a little bit. Genya kind of stumbled back to the corner. I believe that was the only time that he really had Genya in, grave danger in that fight was those last 15 seconds of the first round.
Mm-hmm.
But he did land some solid techniques on him standing throughout the fight. Second round, I think it's fair to say Masvidal won the second round. Genya kind of took a round off there, but still got Genya. The thing about Genya is he got the back for about 2 minutes every round. Sometimes not doing much with it, but he got the back for about 2 minutes every round. And that, I think, scores you a lot of points.
I agree with that. I saw it slightly different. I think I had Genya winning the second, but he kind of coasted in the third round, in which Masvidal landed some good stuff on the feet.
Yeah, I scored.
Unless I'm getting the two.
I think you got it right. I scored round 1 Genya and 2-3 Masvidal, but it's really the problem I have with it is not the winner, because I want to see Genya fight for the belt, and I'm okay with my prediction being wrong. That shit happens, but I just want some kind of consistency in judging. If Johnny Hendricks didn't beat Neil Magny, then there's no way Dema and Genya beat Masvidal last night. But if we're judging fights the way that they've been judged throughout what we've enjoyed as the UFC, Then yeah, Maya won. He had more control. He had more submission attempts, more positions, dangerous positions, and comparatively, he did get outstruck, but he wasn't getting hurt that badly.
And one thing to note, he did end the rounds in top positions.
Dominant position, which
So that's
leaves an impression.
that's also one thing to note. Another thing to say is the judging will always vary because you have different people judging each fight, different commissions, different history or personality, so to speak. So yeah, you're not going to have consistent judging, so to speak. You're gonna have human bias in every judge.
And you gotta remember, we had Sal Diamato there, who makes
Who
Adelaide.
you don't seem to like a lot.
No, he makes Adelaide Bird look like a fucking impeccable judge. He's. I don't think he's watching the fights half the times. I think he picks a winner before the fights start, and that's dead serious. I think he picks a winner before the fight starts sometimes. And
That's
that
some
bothers me.
serious allegations, Genya.
Yeah, well, if you search his name, the first picture you see is him with Herb Dean hanging out. So
What's,
that's a little bit fishy to begin with.
what's that got to do with?
Well, when you're a judge, you don't need to be hanging out with the refs and UFC guys. He's got pictures of him with Dana White and the Fertitas and shit like that.
Are you saying there's conflict of interest?
A little bit, but I'm just a fan.
I see.
My opinion doesn't really matter.
Kind of like a little conflict of interest, Fedor being head of MMA in Russia and still fighting under the same banner.
I'm just saying it smells a little fishy. I'm not making any allegations. I'm just saying it smells fishy.
True. Fair enough. This fight, going back into it, it was really close. I'm not mad about. I wouldn't be mad about any of the outcome because it was really really close. But I was pulling for Maya. Betting aside, I did not want to see him get buried if he got lost. In the same way that it's looking to happen like with Jacare.
And I get that. To be honest, he should have been the one. Like, this fight shouldn't have even happened. He should have been already fighting Woodley.
He took a huge gamble here.
And he went out and fought a tough motherfucker in Masvidal.
Yeah, who, to his credit, I mean, I don't think Masvidal lost a lot of stock in this fight because he didn't get submitted. He only got stifled for 3 rounds. Maya avoided dangerous, parts of that fight.
Yeah, and
for lack of better
despite
words.
Maya winning, this wasn't like before this fight happened. I was really sold on Maya being able to get it done versus T Wood. I'm not as sold on that anymore. Like, it looks like he still struggles with guys like Rory MacDonald, Jorge Masvidal, and T Wood seems to be cut from kind of the same cloth of fighters.
Yeah, and he would have a little bit more grappling savvy. T Wood, that is. He comes from wrestling. He would be definitely harder to take down. He's shorter in stature.
It would be the same type fight. He would be avoiding getting Maya to backpack a bit, pretty much.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be as dangerous on the feet. So it would be, Maya wouldn't be as threatened in some aspects.
I agree, but while he wouldn't be less threatening with the technique, his power is a lot heavier than Masvidal's.
Yeah, the power is there. I mean, Masvidal is just
his technique is excellent.
He's good at creating space and just finding a way to land the punch, like he did against Cesar Ferreira, who was trying to press up against him, and he landed that short elbow.
He's got very quick jab, and he's put out some great strikers like Cerrone, and other guys. He's a real impressive guy. Both guys come out, with their stocks up a little bit after this fight. However, giving you a little bit more concern with Demian Maia versus T Wood, which they did announce, and we're happy for Demian Maia here at Shoot the Ones.
Hell yeah!
And next, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is making a case for being the best female fighter of all time. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 5 in a row now. She's fought a very tough opponent here in
5
Andrade.
championship defenses, right? She's
Yeah.
won more than 5 in a row. She's won a pretty crazy amount in a row.
Yeah, 5 defenses in a row is what I meant. She's making the case to be the best UFC female fighter. Well, best female fighter period at this point. UFC being the best league, I suppose.
Yeah, Dema, her skills are hella impressive. Like since going to American Top Team, you've probably noticed her wrestling is now on a much different level than it was prior to her going to that camp. And her Muay Thai has always been excellent, and she fights long. Like I didn't expect the range difference to be so much versus Jessica, and she made great use of it. And to Jessica's credit, she was tough. She stuck in there the whole time. She was coming forward even in the 5th round, but she was getting lit up, and she ate a lot of hard strikes. And I noticed this, and I pointed out to you, Dema, when she fought Claudia Gadelha, who I think is the best fighter that she's going to ever face in that division, to be honest. When she was comfortable on her back with a good jiu-jitsu player like that on top of her, I was like, man, this girl's going to be tough to beat because she's going to survive the rest of the round, and then she's going to get in her world again where she's got the gas tank to go 10 rounds if need be.
For sure, dude. I'm going to toot our own horn here a little bit and say we kind of predicted this fight to go down exactly the way that it did. Jessica looked really good, and I want to give her credit. She was really tough, and she arguably looked the best in the later parts of fights against Joanna than a lot of other opponents that Joanna went up against.
Yeah, and to your point, we talked last week about how her most success would be in the Vanderlei Silva style exchanges. And that's the only success she had was when it got wild. She lumped Joanna up on the forehead.
Yeah, exactly.
And she needed to create a few more wild exchanges, but it's a little bit easier for us to sit on the couch and say that than take 5-6 punches from Joanna to get it into those wild exchanges.
Yeah, but as we called, Joanna made great use of her range, her distance, and her height advantage. She did not let herself get trapped against the cage. She circled out, which I said would be her key to winning this fight. Yeah, and she looked really, really good doing it. She was a sniper with the stand up, and landed a lot of really, really good shots on Jessica, which goes to show how tough Jessica really is.
Yeah, well, they got a great champion there at 115, and the reason why I say she's making a case for her, and Chris Cyborg is one of my favorite female fighters of all time, but she's got, a couple steroid allegations she's got on her plate. Ronda Rousey wasn't as good as she was billed to be ever. This girl is an all-around...
And Cyborg is having a hard time getting fights. I mean, she should have fought a long time ago, with the UFC.
Yeah, but I'm just talking in terms of dominant careers.
Yeah.
Not necessarily UFC history, but like women, since women have been established as professional fighters, she has shown the most to me. Like
she's been around for longer, for sure.
And the crazy thing is, like, when she entered and got her championship, she was a one-dimensional fighter. Mm-hmm. Now the girls that have to face her have to deal with a lot more problems from Joanna. This is a Joanna that can wrestle, that's got some jiu-jitsu under her belt, and she's world-class at striking.
Well, like you said, coming to America is a moment for a lot of these international fighters that they are able to, take advantage of a lot of good wrestling coaching.
Mm-hmm. And that was her biggest weakness.
Yeah, so, she's always looking to improve, which is, I think, one of the most important things you can do as a champion in order to stay on top.
I agree. And let's talk about the heavyweight championship of the UFC contested between Stipe Miocic versus Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah, man, that was a good fight. Not it
was good while it lasted.
It was a good matchup, and not a really good fight for Junior. I mean, it was a really good fight for Stipe.
Yeah,
I should have said.
I hear you. And this is the way Stipe's looked the last 3 fights after, JDS got that narrow decision victory. I think Stipe took that to heart, changed some parts of his game, really sitting down on his punches now. I think that's how he got Verdum, Overeem, and now JDS out of there. JDS had a little bit different strategy than he typically has going in. JDS is usually looking to box and, to outclass you with the hands. This time he was kind of like Overeem. Wanted to use, kick heavy strategy, get Stipe's legs out. Stipe, to his credit, was just walking through the kicks. And JDS seemed a little bit too comfortable up against the fence, which has been his downfall for prior fights. I believe that's where Overeem knocked him out, and he's gotten in trouble against the fence a number of times against Cain Velasquez. And it's kind of been a dangerous game that he plays.
Man, this fight, yeah, like you said, let's talk about Junior. He came out and he was kind of reluctant. He was relying on the kick, which was successful at first. It stifled Stipe, but Stipe did not give a fuck. He just kept walking forward, and Junior put himself in trouble because he, I guess, was a little bit too comfortable fighting off the cage, and that's not something you wanna. That's not the game you wanna play against an animal like Stipe Miocic. Stipe came out and he was looking to land the shot, close in the distance and land the shots on Junior. And Junior has been through so many wars. It's got so much wear and tear on him that he can't take a punch the same way he could 3-4 years ago.
Another fight exactly how we predicted, but what we were saying was, Stipe's a Golden Gloves boxer too. Let's not forget he's got some boxing skills.
Yeah, he can land
too.
A punch for sure.
And what I wanted to ask you about this is, have you noticed in the last couple fights, like JDS and Overeem, and even Verdum, they all fight out of character against this guy, and I think that's because they know what kind of power he's working with, and that he knows how to use it. And the problem that you get into it with Stipe is when you feel his power, your instinct is to take him down. Well, good luck. He's a hard guy to take down.
Yeah, man, he's definitely posing a lot of problems for, a lot of aging guys in the division, which brings me to a point. I would really be excited to see him fight against, perhaps the up-and-comers, the guys that are looking good recently. Of course, he's got a couple of fights to get out of his way in perhaps Cain or winner of Overeem and Verdum.
Yeah, what I think is going to happen is, like you say, he's going to fight the winner of Overeem, Verdum. I want to see Cain Velasquez myself, but I can see UFC fans being a little bitter about that because Cain hasn't done anything to become that number one contender. He's been on the sidelines and beat Travis Brown a while ago.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard to push that, even though he's probably the best challenge to Stipe in my eyes right now.
I think Cain, Francis Ngannou. Ngannou called for a fight with Cain, so it would make sense. It would be a tough one for Cain to get back on, but Cain being as good as he is, I think this would make for a really, really dope matchup. And of course, like we said, Overeem Verdum is another one, and you got the Russian fella lingering in the division. You got the Black Beast.
Antigullo? Oh no, that's you're talking about heavyweight.
Yeah, was it Volkov?
Yeah, Alexander
Volkov.
Yep, just beat Roy Nelson.
So yeah,
I don't think Francis is quite ready for a championship opportunity, but if JDS sticks around, Francis versus JDS, that would be a barn burner right there.
I don't want to see JDS go through that. I think put him in there against somebody who's been around for longer, who make it a little bit more competitive. Don't throw him back in against the buzzsaw, so to speak.
Yeah, fair point, Dema. And Junior's going to need some rest after this loss. And Francis probably wants to get in there a little bit quicker. But like I said, I don't think he's quite ready to face Stipe, and I don't think he's earned that by beating Arlovsky, even though I think he's got the skills to give Stipe some issues, of course.
Yep, Stipe looked hella impressive. As I said before, he is likely to tie the most amount of title defenses for the heavyweight division, which is kind of a crazy fact.
But he did tie it. Not likely. He did tie it on this one.
I meant to say likely to beat it.
Yes. He would probably be the favorite, whoever he's fighting next. I agree with you there.
And yeah, man, I'm excited to see Stipe. You know, he's a popular champion. People really like to pull for him, and you know, he's got the city of Cleveland behind him. We see you know, he's a little bit of personality has started to come out, and you know, some of the embeddeds, and yeah, he's a really personable guy.
Yeah, he's a good, humble, hard worker that we can really get behind as a heavyweight champion. The UFC is just now starting to get behind and really push. Did you know what kind of numbers this show did?
I don't know yet. I'll probably look it up tomorrow.
But an exciting show nevertheless. Great show. It was exciting to talk to you guys about UFC 211. I know me and Dema were jonesing to talk to you guys about 211 just because it was a great card that lived up to the hype.
I'll bring you the numbers right here, real quick. It was 17,800 in attendance, and the card did 2.6 million at the gate. As far as the pay-per-view buy numbers, I don't think those are out yet.
Okay, so that's pretty good for the UFC. They had a
they sold out.
They're better than the last couple shows have done.
Oh man, I mean, this card, you know, sold itself. It was stacked from, you know, better middle to top with, you know, really, really exciting fights.
I agree. Like when Henry Cejudo, who was probably a little bit fat, you know, didn't make it, you know, against Sergio Pettis, I didn't really look at that as a huge loss, whereas a lot of other cards you lose a main event fight and people are really upset for a while, and you know that's the thing that they're talking about, and instead of the fights after the weekend of fights is over. Not this time. We're talking about the fights.
It always sucks when fights fall out, and I was excited for that one. I wanted to see Sergio Pettis, how he would, you know.
Don't get me wrong. I was also excited about it. I wasn't as disappointed that it was off the card.
If it would have been any other fight, I would have been vastly more disappointed. I
was like
Khabib
Tony.
Yeah,
when Khabib Tony was off the card, like it really hit me.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that I think that hit most of MMA community in a way that, you know, everybody came out and really voiced their disappointment.
I agree, but I had fun watching the card and had a good time talking about it. And we'll come back with some of this week's news right after this break. Shoot the Ones listeners, thanks for joining us again this week. If you'd like to advertise your product or brand to our fans, we can be reached at shootthe1spodcast@gmail.com. That's shoot the 1s podcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on SoundCloud, subscribe to our show on YouTube, and like and share us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening and your loyal support. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Welcome back to Shoot the Ones. Let's get right into the news portion of our program and talk about some of these recent developments in the middleweight division, as well as I wanted to talk over a plethora of fights announced with this summer kickoff event UFC hosted couple of days back. So first thing is first, the GSP fight between Michael Bisping is off the table now, and it's been scrapped because GSP came out and said he wanted to fight in October or after October, which I think they said it's too long. This is no longer the case, and now the possibility, well, not the possibility, it's now reality. The Romero fight is likely to happen in July.
Yeah, that's an accurate description. The only things I have to add to it were, like you said, it was October was what GSP was looking for, and UFC said that this was too long, and they went back to what I believe should have been the original fight. They're looking for Bisping Romero, targeting that for July. The only thing I really have to add other than that is I believe they're still going to get GSP a fight, and a rumor that's in the works is possibly Anderson Silva.
Anderson Silva's looking for a fight, I heard.
So maybe they're going to try to make that fight that they've wanted to make. Oh, I don't know how much they've wanted to make for years, but the fans have wanted for years, especially back when both guys were champions at the same respective time.
I'm excited for that. Two reasons. The fight that's, the marquee fight, the super fight that's, people has been wanting to see for years that we never got to see, unfortunately. I always kind of thought with the return of GSP, the fight with Silva might be a possibility down the road. Another reason I'm excited is the middleweight division is no longer on hold. So this opens up things. The Romero fight is finally the green light. That's going to happen. The rightful number one contender gets to fight for the belt. That's a really good thing. Rockhold, the morale of the division is up. The people aren't as upset anymore because, like I said, things are moving.
Great points, Dema. The middleweight division is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC. I would argue the second most stacked to lightweight. So I am like with the way that the events went, I am happy that they did make this decision. It's albeit it was kind of stupid on the UFC's part to do a press conference and spend all that money and then just call the fight off. Have them face off and do all that jazz. And just be like, you know what? It makes more sense to fight the actual number one contender who's a legit badass and already coming in as a 3-1 favorite over Bisping. Which I believe is a fair line. I think that's fair. He probably is a 3-1 favorite. But Bisping is a dangerous fighter himself.
I would tend to disagree. I think it's a closer fight than many would think. I think Bisping can capitalize on a lot of openings there and avoid some of the scary power of Yoel Romero. Now, granted, Yoel can, if he connects, he can do a lot of damage and he can put away anybody, even in his age. So
yeah, and Chael Sonnen was able to out-wrestle Bisping. Granted, Bisping gets up super fast, great off his back, but let's remember, Yoel Romero is a way better wrestler than Chael Sonnen's ever been.
I think he's improved since then too, and he's really nice with the hands, always.
Bisping's always been criminally underrated. This is a guy that even in the beginning of his stint in the UFC went against prime Rashad Evans and went to a decision with him. And that was one of his only losses in the UFC. I mean, guys that were supposed to give him fights and were supposed to be competitive fights, like Jason Mayhem Miller, he annihilated for the most part. He did struggle against Dan Henderson, but he got that win back. He beat Luke. To his credit, nobody thought he was going to beat Luke. Everybody counted him out, including the bet line. They had him as like a 7-1 underdog, 8-1 underdog.
Yeah.
Everybody, he's been counted out his whole career, and this fight's no different. And Bisping's one of my favorite characters in MMA. I mean, if you haven't listened to his podcast, I hate promoting another podcast.
Oh, he's hilarious.
On our podcast.
He's hilarious.
But yeah, his podcast is already doing numbers like up there at the top. And like you said, he's a hilarious guy. He's an excellent talker. One of my favorite personalities. If you haven't heard his Yoel Romero impression, oh, it's hysterical. He's spot on with it. Hey, you, he's got the Yoel impression down to a T. And he's a good fighter who's been criminally underrated his whole career. I'll probably be rooting for him. Depending, I would only put a couple units on him, depending on how crazy the line got. I think that Yoel Romero wins this fight, and wins it with the strength of his wrestling, and like against Chris Weidman, who I have a lot of respect for. He, one thing Yoel's got, he's really good at, is he kind of waits for that right punch. You know, he'll feint it a lot. He'll feint it, and he hits you when it like. He's one of those athletes that explode.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he explodes on that punch when he has it, and that's a scary proposition.
Yeah, I was laughing because Yoel is not a really hard guy to impersonate. Hey, Genya! Hey, Genya! No forget Jesus! Hey, Genya!
Yeah. Have you heard Bisping's impression of him? It's good.
I think so. I think so.
It's good.
Did. It's just the banter between them two. I think I'm excited about the lead up to this fight. You know, Yoel is very personable, and he's got a really good interpreter. He plays into the whole wrestling kind of promotion of the fight angle really good, and he embellishes.
He's a real guy.
He embellishes the like the bad guy role, like Yoel does, and like he gets it. So promoting himself, I mean, and yeah, I think the lead up to this fight is gonna be dope. They can both talk some good shit. I mean, Bisping, like you said, criminally underrated. He's been underrated so many times that, you know, I think this is a case of that again.
Yeah, he is a guy has been looked past in the past. And he's come up on the winning side of things way more times than not. I do think that Yoel is a style nightmare, and like you said, this guy, kind of like Demian Maia, he legit earned his title shot. Whether you think he beat Jacare or not, the judges named him the winner that night, and that puts him on quite a streak. You know,
yeah,
and beating Weidman right after that.
Exactly, took the words out of my mouth. The win in such fashion over Weidman cemented his place up there. So, yeah, really dope fight.
Speaking of Weidman, did you hear at the summer kickoff conference, which we were going to talk about next? Did you hear they announced Chris Weidman's next fight?
Yep, they announced him versus Kevin Gastelum.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that? Kevin, yeah, gets a fight. You know, coming off of that fiasco with the pot.
Fiasco. He smoked a little bit of pot. I mean, we're pot friendly here at Shoot the Ones.
I call it fiasco because it's bullshit. I mean, yeah, he lost his fight against Silva, and Silva's now upset he doesn't get the fight. I mean.
Yeah, that was a good fight versus Anderson Silva.
I don't think the fight should have been scrapped. I think, you know, the fines or whatever should have been. He's already taken a huge L in that the fight against Vitor gets overturned. So taking it a step further and taking the fight away just really adds more salt to the injury, I guess. And now Silva's really pissed because he doesn't get the fight in Brazil, which he wanted to.
I don't think Silva's gonna be pissed if he gets that GSP fight. That's where the money's at right now. If he wants the most money he can make in one fight, it would probably be fighting GSP.
Which I think they should go ahead and do. Appease both of them. They both earned the payday, so to speak.
Not fighting Kelvin Gastelum, but man, Kelvin is the sleeper in that division in my eyes. I think Chris Weidman and Kelvin have a very similar skill set. I think that Kelvin is a much faster guy, but if you would have seen when they faced off at the conference, Weidman is a much bigger man. Kelvin is like a small middleweight, and Weidman looks like a damn light heavyweight, you know, that struggles making the middleweight limit.
Yeah.
So the size difference is going to play a role, but to Weidman's credit, man, coming off of 0-3 and facing arguably the sleeper in that division, not no slouch.
Yeah,
A
right.
guy, a
He's
guy
right
that could
back
be
in
up
there.
there at the top.
Yeah, he's right back in there with the toughest of the fights, and I mean, like you said, they're both very similar, except for you have a huge size difference now between them.
But this is winnable for Chris, no?
Yeah, like because of the size, and but Kevin
He
is
should have a wrestling advantage too, and Chris Weidman's got real good jiu-jitsu and ground and pound, but yeah, Kelvin's
they're both
also
really
a
good
wrestler.
wrestling. I think that would cancel each other out. So one thing to consider possibly is Chris is older and has more wear and tear on him. He's coming off of the knockout losses. So, yeah.
And as you saw against Vitor, Kelvin's hand speed is pretty scary.
Yeah, so it's I'm gonna be very interested to see how the size difference plays out.
If you had an early prediction, you got anybody yet? Or
I'm gonna go Kevin Gastelum, dude.
I think the same thing, man. I think Kelvin's gonna pull the upset. I think he's gonna come in as a sizable underdog, and I think that he's gonna do what he does, man. Kelvin, he might get beat up a little bit early, but he loves dragging guys into the deep water. It didn't happen versus Vitor because he was able to just surprise Vitor with the hand speed. But Kelvin, he takes guys into deep water and he kind of drowns them lately.
Yeah, he's tough. He's durable. I'm counting on that. He's fast.
Good jab.
He's looked good in this division thus far. But this is just a gut instinct. This could be a case of like a Yair Rodriguez, Frankie Edgar, where you throw a veteran in and the veteran goes in and shows the young cat up.
Yeah, two tough guys, man. I'm excited, and Weidman needs to get a win under his belt. He's got to figure out a way to get Kelvin out of there, which is not easy for anybody in that middleweight division.
No, he's Kevin's super durable. Like I said, will be tough to take down because he's short and stocky. Just that lower center of gravity makes it really, really tough to follow through and finish the takedown.
Yeah, and like you said, King's MMA representative, good with the hands. Tough fight for anybody.
Yeah, of course. Couple of other fights were announced on that. Nunez and Shevchenko were confirmed.
Do they have a date?
I think the date was announced. I don't have it written down.
They're looking for July.
I don't remember off the top. But,
I
this being the summer kickoff, this is probably going to be June, July.
Yeah, I think most of these are that International Fight Week, which I believe is in June, July.
DC and Jones, probably the biggest fight on the panel, got a date and was made official. And there was some entertaining shit talk between the two.
That was my favorite shit talk of the whole conference, which had a lot of shit talk. But yeah, I enjoyed it because Daniel Cormier his shit talk is real.
Yeah.
And John Jones is kind of the same way, but a little bit more savage with his shit talk. One of my favorite lines John Jones has was Daniel Cormier was calling him out for doing coke and all that right before he fought him. He's like, yeah, man, I partied it up on coke and then I went and whooped your ass the next day. And I got a good kick out of that. But Daniel Cormier kind of needs to make John Jones' personal life part of his business because it's lost Daniel Cormier millions of dollars in being able to fight this guy. And his main talking point is, he's sitting there and just thinking, like, how's John Jones going to fuck it up this time?
Yeah, and I think it's he needed to turn up the mental games a little bit, and he did need to turn up the shit talk, and I think Cormier is trying to sell the fight, and it's a step in the right direction if you want to replicate some of I guess Connor's magic.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine this fight going much different than the first time they fought, but you got to give Daniel that fight, and Daniel's proven to be the legit second best, light heavyweight out there in the world by a good margin.
Ring rust is going to be a factor. John Jones came out,
yeah,
for sure. and when he had the fight with OSP, he paced himself real slow. Even though he won the fight, he did not look as dominant as he did in any other fights in that division.
Yeah, he definitely seemed to be either affected by ring rust that fight, which I believe to be the case, or just OSP being a little bit of an awkward fighter and him not wanting to take so many risks in that fight. But either way, like you said, it wasn't as impressive as his prior fights versus Shogun, etc.
Early pick?
My early pick would be John Jones rooting for Daniel Cormier, and I see it as a 60-40 fight, where Daniel actually has a solid chance. But it's hard to see anybody beating John Jones. I mean, this might be one of the best fighters of our generation.
He might be, but I am going to flip the script and go DC here. I think the ring rust and having the time off is going to be a key here, and
I hope you're right. I'm going to bet DC and I'm going to root for DC. But realistically, what percentages would you give the fight? Like I said, 60-40 in Jones' advantage. Do you think it's a whole lot different than that?
I think it's like 55 to DC. I think it's going to be a really close fight. I think it's going to go to like a decision. It has a really good chance.
He's not going to be surprised by Jones's takedown ability this time. I think that really caught him off guard in the first fight and was the story of the first fight. Was those takedowns and not being able to get Jones down really messed with Cormier's head a little bit in that fight.
And, DC's come a long way since then. He's looked really good in his fight against Anthony Rumble Johnson, and he's fought Gus since then, I believe. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be quite the same fighter that John Jones fought already. I think he's going to be more active and more improved since then, and I think it's going to be more competitive this time around.
Fair points, and he did have more success than just about anybody against John Jones, and most of his success came in the dirty clinch.
Gus had good.
That's true. Gus did have a really good fight. That
arguably won.
Could have gone either way. But just to kind of speed the process up a little bit, because we still got Bellator 179 to go over. This conference also had a couple more flare-ups, Dema, a couple more fight announcements, and dates announced, I guess, for certain fights. Some of the ones that I remember off the top of my head were Kevin Lee, Michael Chiesa, Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Claudia Gadelha, which is a heck of a fight. Karolina had about as much success as anybody besides Claudia versus Joanna. Probably the two fighters that had the most success against the champion. Probably setting up the number one contender there. Chiesa versus Lee, which is a great fight. Vic wants the winner of this one.
Yep.
And were there any other ones that you remember that were pertinent besides those? I remember those four.
Of note, those are the only ones I wanted to mention or, had anything to say about. Yeah, Kevin Lee and Chiesa had a little bit of a flare-up where both of them had to be escorted off the stage. Lee was threw a punch, I believe. He even might have connected on Chiesa there.
I remember another one that was on there. We had Joanne Calderwood versus Cynthia Calvillo.
Good catch.
Yeah.
They, I guess, not as memorable because they were a little bit more respectful of one another.
They didn't talk the shit.
They didn't talk shit. Everybody else made it a fucking shit show.
Yeah, Joanna's a pretty respectful gal in the first place, and Cynthia is, I think, a true MMA artist. She's not there to talk shit or impress anybody. She's in there to kick girls' asses.
Just refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's a different approach. It's kind of the Damian Maia approach to things.
Lots of exciting fights announced for the summer, and we are going to discuss Bellator 179, Daley versus MacDonald after the short break. Hey guys, it's Dema. I wanted to thank you for listening to Shoot the Ones podcast. If you guys have any questions or have any comments, please reach out to us at shoottheonespodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave your comments across any of our social media platforms. Again, thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
Welcome back, Shoot the Ones listeners. And while we don't have UFC coming up this weekend, we do have a much anticipated fight between Paul Daley and Rory MacDonald coming up at Bellator 179, which is going to be at Wembley Arena in London. I'm sure those guys were really looking forward to MVP, which was supposed to be on this card, but nevertheless, we got three or so exciting fights we could talk about on this card.
Yeah, there was unfortunate fallout. Michael Page was scheduled to face Derek Anderson. That was the co-main event. Unfortunately, the fight was removed off the card. Page suffered a knee injury and unfortunately had to pull out. But we do have a couple of interesting matchups here. We'll go top to bottom as...
And to add what you said, England still does have two of their guys that are still in the main and the co-main.
That's true. But let's get right into it with the main event. Rory MacDonald makes his Bellator debut against Paul Daley. Always exciting. Semtex.
Much anticipated debut for Rory MacDonald. Had a recent tough run in the UFC because of nose issues and just tough fights, fighting the best guys in the world. Decided on his own kind of to go over to Bellator. The market was pretty good for him, and Bellator needed a star like him. And Paul Daley, he's been impressive since getting cut from the UFC. He got cut, remember, not because he was a poor fighter, but because he threw a cheap shot after a fight.
Yep.
And was his reason for getting cut. And, he's had some great wars outside the UFC. Against Nick Diaz, which I think was actually before his stint in the UFC. But even after, he's been in Bellator.
No, that was after, because he went to Strikeforce after that, and then he fought Nick in Strikeforce.
I thought that was before his UFC run where he punched Koscheck, though. I think he fought Strikeforce, and then Strikeforce dissolved into the UFC.
And he punched Koscheck then?
And then, yeah, because he was part of, you remember when Gilbert Melendez, it was Gilbert, Josh Thompson, all those guys went over at the same time when the Strikeforce dissolved or whatever.
Man, it's getting big blur as far as timeline for me right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Paul Daley was part of that group.
Okay. And
he had a little success in the UFC, getting like 2 early knockouts, and he fought Koscheck and got dominated by him. Which has been a problem over his career, which he's slowly improved. He's always kind of a feared striker. He's got good hands. I don't see Rory having too much trouble with Paul Daley, even though Paul's going to be the hometown guy with the crowd behind him. I don't see what, besides like kind of how he knocked out the last guy, Brennan Ward, I don't see like any way that Paul Daley wins this fight. And I think Rory's too smart to to play his game.
Yeah, to get into a brawl. Yeah, I think you're right. The Canadian has a more complete tool set as far as MMA is concerned. And
this is a guy that beat Demian Maia.
That's very true. And he's got a high fight IQ. He's an intelligent fighter. So I don't see him making much mistakes of in the way of getting in a brawl with Semtex, where he might be threatened with the power and the stand up. So I think he's gonna be smart. He's gonna take him down and work his advantage.
Yeah, and Rory's a confident guy, and sometimes he goes to positions that he shouldn't just to prove a point, and he kind of, Paul Daley is a little bit similar to Robbie Lawler as a fighter, But I think Robbie Lawler's got a little bit better takedown defense. I think the power in their shots is very similar, though. And he does have potential to hurt Rory, which makes this an exciting fight. I'm going to put a couple bucks on Rory MacDonald, that's for sure. Moving on.
I would pick Rory as well. Yeah,
you got Rory as well?
Just throwing a pick out.
No, that was good. I forgot to ask for your pick, and I apologize for this. I'm just excited because we got a fight that England's been pushing. I don't know if the MMA community's been pushing for it for a while, but London wants to know, who their best light heavyweight is, and they have a good chance to find out here with Liam McGeary versus Linton Vassell.
Yeah, Liam is always exciting. Real good striking. Yeah, he he gets to fight on home turf, and yeah, it's looking to be an exciting fight. I don't have much to say about Linton Vassell. I don't know much about his opponent. So can you add anything for Mr. Vassell?
Vassell's coming off of a recent pretty dominant win over Carmont, recent win over Emmanuel Newton, lost to Muhammad King Mo by unanimous decision in a fairly close fight, and knocking out Sokaju and getting submitted by Emmanuel Newton in their first fight. So one of his wins he got back. This guy has got a really good grappling game, and he's all around MMA game. His striking isn't as diverse or as rangy as Liam McGeary, but I believe his grappling game is a lot better than Liam's. I think his top game is a little bit better. Like Liam's grappling game is trying to throw up crazy submissions most of the time. He can get controlled by a guy like Congo, like a guy like Vassell, who controlled Francis Carmont in the last fight. Somebody with a top heavy game. That's probably why his nickname is the Swarm, because of his top heavy game, and I think he's going to be able to impose that on Liam McGeary. And I see Liam being real dangerous in the first round, and I see as the fight progresses, Linton Vassell kind of wearing on him. And getting the win that way.
I guess that answers my question. I was going to ask, who would you pick here?
I think I'm going to go with Linton Vassell. He's got a nice streak going, and I think McGeary has had a good row of opponents, to highlight his skill set, which is also an intimidating skill set, and one that, should be noted.
Picking against the Englishman here, so you might disappoint a couple of our English fans here.
Why? They're both from England.
Who? Oh, Vassell.
Yeah, they're both from England.
Oh, well. Goes to show you how much you know about the guy.
Well, that's what I said before the fight. I said that England's been wanting this fight for a while because they want to see who their best light heavyweight is. That's why this fight's kind of exciting to me.
All right.
I do believe these two be the two. I don't know, man. I don't follow the London who their best light heavyweights are. I know. So, are there any other good light heavyweights from London? So these are more likely their two best guys at light heavyweight, which adds intrigue to the fight, I believe.
Well said. In the next fight, we are going to see Cheick Kongo versus.
Oh, shit, you said his name right.
Yeah, man. Learning.
Been practicing.
We're gonna see Cheick Kongo versus Augusto Sakai.
Yeah, man. Good fight, Sakai. Sakai is got a good record. They're in the Bellator and in his last couple fights. I don't really care to look it up too bad, but he's on a string of wins, not in the most impressive fashion, and so is Kongo. I think Kongo did have that loss to Vitaly Minyakov. Other than that, he's had great success over there at Bellator. And this is looking like a good fight between Cheick Kongo versus Augusto Sakai. And I see this going kind of like Cheick Kongo's last couple fights, where he controls the guy and really has his way, and the gap between him and some of these Bellator fighters is a little bit more noticeable.
Right on. We have a couple more fights. Real quick, we'll glance over those. Dan Edwards, Alex Lahoro, or Lahori, We have a return of Baby Slice, Kevin Ferguson Jr. versus DJ Griffin. We have a few more fights on preliminary card. That's going to be on Spike.com, but I'm not going to list all of those. So it looks like a solid card coming up for Bellator 179. They're going to go to London for that one, and yeah, man.
Holy cow, Dema! I was looking through the undercard while you were saying that, and something that you might find of interest. Well, first of all, something the fans might find, or the Shoot the Ones listeners might find interesting, is almost all these guys are actually out of England, so it's a lot of hometown guys fighting, and sometimes hometown guys versus themselves. But do you remember Neil Grove? Like old school guy, used to fight back in the day in Bellator, UFC, really all over. Really big guy. He retired a while back. It looks like he's reappearing on this card against a guy named Lucas Parabich. That can't be the way you pronounce his name. How the hell would you pronounce it? Luka?
Parabich? Yeah, man. You got it pretty close.
Lucas Parabich, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, Neil Grove, it's good to see him back. I was just scrolling through that and I found that a little bit interesting. But like you said, I don't typically watch too much of the Bellator undercards. But if you do, you do have some exciting fighters who have potential big futures and might be on main cards.
All right. Well, I guess this concludes the episode 15 of Shoot the Ones podcast. Me and Genya wanted to thank all of the listeners. If you made it this far in the episode,
this has been a real fun episode. This is one of those episodes that we're real excited to do, because there's so many talking points that we just want to get to, and the fights were really lived up to the hype, like we said at the beginning of the episode. It was just a real enjoyable card altogether, and one that we enjoy discussing, the one that builds more MMA fans, brings in new fans, and, it's kind of what we live for as MMA fans.
Yeah, 211 was fire, so we're excited to talk about that as always. And yeah, guys, thank you for joining us this week. We're excited we picked up a sponsor. Check out our friends at Local Liquids, local-liquids.com. That's their website. Quick shout out to them. Let's vape. And yeah, guys, Dema and Genya out.